Hello, wonderful people. Thank you for joining me this week on Learning with Lear. My name is Ryan Verdon. I am the founder and director of Lear Cultural Coaching. If you want to learn more about me, feel free to check out the website. The link is in the description. You'll also find links to previous episodes of Learning with Lear. Last week, we talked about the beloved community and what white folks' role in the beloved community is. If you watch that and something resonates with you, it feels useful, you learn something, uh, please like that video, subscribe to this channel, and share it on social media. All of those things tell the algorithms that this is content that should be in front of more people. And I hope that you feel like I do, like this should be in front of more people, that we're doing something that moves the larger conversation forward. And so I'm really appreciative of you doing that, building our community together. And thank you to those that have done that. So this week, I want to talk about cultural appropriation, um, why white folks do it, and what we can do about it. Okay, and I want to do that because the number two song in the country is by a white male conservative rapper Tom MacDonald, and it features Ben Shapiro, another white conservative commentator, fairly well known commentator. Okay, and I don't want to break down the disrespect in the video, the if it's appropriation or not, um, all the things. There's plenty of people doing that. Plenty of things you can read and watch. I highly recommend watching Dr. Mark Lamont Hill's take and analysis of it. Subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. It's amazing. I want to talk about why we do it. Why do white people do this? And what we can do about it. Okay. And you won't be surprised to hear that I think it's connected to switching our understanding of anti-racism and how we approach anti-racism. But first, let's talk about what cultural appropriation is. Some of you might not have an understanding or a working definition. So let's define it. And there might be some iterations or variations in this definition, but it's commonly understood as being engaging in cultural practices from a culture that is not your own, without respect or an understanding of that culture and the importance of that practice. Okay, so the culture in question here is hip hop. Um, this is something that has been a conversation in mainstream media for some time, but also in my own life. I consider myself having come up within hip hop, and I love hip hop. I consider myself a hip hop head. So, as a white male, I've been constantly calibrating what's appropriation and what's not. And just because it's not one time doesn't mean it can't be again, and vice versa. Okay. And so this is a question that should be rolling around in white people's heads all the time. Um, and the reason that it happens, though, so when white people do that, the reason that happens is because true cultural exchange is not ever possible with white people. So what do I mean by that? Okay, culture is not static. It is a dynamic thing. Throughout human history, cultures have exchanged practices, have exchanged knowings and art and ways of being, and something new comes from that exchange, right? Well, whiteness stops that exchange because what whiteness does is it strips us from all cultural things: our language, our food, our music, our gods, our dance, all the things, our dress, right? It strips us from that. Um, and it replaces it with, if you can call this culture, I guess it replaces it with a culture of commodification and consumption. That is what whiteness was intended to do. Its whole purpose is to justify the commodification of creation, the land, also human beings, and to consume, to make money, to consume all like one the land so that you can then make money, right? And get. That is what whiteness is. It's not an organic thing that develops. It's a political, deliberate political strategy. Um, and so we see that with hip hop. Hip hop comes from black and brown communities in the South Bronx who were facing oppression from the state, and all the things that came along with that, right? State violence, divestment, um, in jobs and infrastructure and all that. And so hip hop springs as a response to that, both as a resistance and as a place to offer some community, some connection, some very human things. Okay, uh, and that happens in the South Bronx, and DJ Kool Herc is the godfather of hip hop, oftentimes cited. Um, but by the early '90s, hip hop has grown. Okay, and now it's become something that can be commercialized, can be commodified. And I want to be clear, that doesn't mean that the practitioners of hip hop, the artists of hip hop that made money, that got major record label deals, somehow are sellouts, are doing all that. That's not the conversation I'm having right now. It became something that white folks were now exposed to because whiteness elevated it. And the thing that it elevated was a commodified version of it. It wasn't the culture, it was rap music. Rap music became a commodity, and even that, a specific element of rap music, which reflected the lived realities of people, became the commodity. Okay, um, and so without by just engaging in that, which Tom MacDonald and Ben Shapiro are, they're just engaging in this thing that they believe is rap music without understanding any of that process, without understanding any of the culture. This is what you get. You get what's happened here. Okay, so that is why this is a problem, right? But that process happens with everything. It's not just hip hop that white folks commodify because we are wounded. Whiteness wounds us. Okay? That disconnect from culture, the stripping away of culture, the disconnect from creation and community and the creator leaves us with a hole that needs to be filled. And so when and white supremacy elevate things that remind us of culture, that are the sanitized, commodified pieces of culture, like this version of rap music that got held up, white folks loved it. That's why the majority of consumers of hip hop are white suburban people, young people, because they see something that's important for them to have: connection, community, culture, and they have no access to that. Right, within whiteness, there's no access to that. This is what whiteness has done to us, right? David Roediger talks a little bit about this in his book, Working Towards Whiteness, the chapter Inside the Whale, New Immigrant Racial Consciousness, discusses the whale. And the whale is this thing that came from particularly music, but art, being creative. Some folks will call it soul, suffering, pain, right? A whale, Wail. And Roediger talks about Paul Robeson singing in Yiddish when he refused to sing in French and Italian and other languages. And he said because Jewish people understood the whale, he recognized the pain in the Yiddish songs from his experience as a black man. He talks about Frederick Douglass's experience with Irish folks who understood the pain that came from being colonized by the English, right? Which is why they were so steadfastly abolitionists. Irish Americans, on the other hand, once they accepted whiteness, became some of the most vehement and vicious racists in our country. Okay, this disconnect is real, and it happens because of whiteness. And so, cultural appropriation is our attempt to fill this very human need, to be a part of something, to be connected to community. And where it happens and what needs to happen, where we break down, right, is that our current anti-racist frame offers no way to actually deal with that disconnection. It tells us that being anti-racist is focusing on the privileges that whiteness gives us, right? That we are elevated in these ways and therefore are not missing anything. We can't possibly be wounded by whiteness, but nothing can be further from the truth. The reality is we are very wounded. We're walking around with gaping holes where our souls should be, right? And so in order to stop appropriation, we have to actually go inward. We have to look and see, what was it that whiteness cost us? What were the traditions? What was the music? What were the things we were creating about? What was our community like before whiteness, right? And when we can reconnect with that, then we can move forward in a way that culture then evolves, and we can come up with something that's meaningful for our current time and place. I want to be very clear. We don't have that right now. We don't have a language to even talk about that right now. Okay? What we have are folks who are some folks who are in right relationship, who are engaging in that, and then we have a whole lot of people who are not in right relationship, are searching for culture and are appropriating. And then we also have some of these folks like Tom MacDonald and Ben Shapiro who are thinking they're doing something creative or witty, or I don't know, but really it's just it's very shallow, thinly veiled hatred for other folks, right? And to add insult to injury, they're using a cultural vehicle to do that. A vehicle that's full of beauty, that comes as a response to the very things that they're talking about. And so it's wildly disrespectful, right? And this is how whiteness perpetuates. We need an anti-racism that says stop. Tom MacDonald, Ben Shapiro, the millions of other white folks, myself included, that have engaged in appropriation. Stop. What are we, and look, what are we actually missing? What do we need? And then how do we take that learning? How do we connect back to who we were, to our ancestors, and then work through that, and come up with a way to show up as true, fully cultural beings in our current time and place, 2024, United States of America, and how do we participate in creating culture and the way that culture evolves as it always has. Whiteness has stalled that process. We have to be able to engage in true cultural exchange. But in order to do that, we have to unlearn whiteness. Because right now, what's happening is, because of whiteness's role and its focus on consumption and its stranglehold on capitalist economy, it is the mechanism of capitalism, right? That got exported globally. And we're seeing that cultural exchange now comes with accepting genocide, dropping bombs, exploiting the planet. We are exporting the poison of whiteness. And it's not even a real culture. It's not rooted in place. It's not rooted in a people. It's not rooted in traditions. It is rooted in violence and hatred and disconnection and dis-ease. And so again, our route out of this is understanding what whiteness has cost us, looking in, healing the wound, beginning to heal the wound for ourselves and with each other, and then showing up in a way to be ready for multiracial community. I hope that made sense. I hope it feels like it's adding to the dialogue. Please do not go listen to Tom MacDonald and Ben Shapiro's song. Download Meg Thee Stallion. Buy Nicki's album again, because Nicki gets dragged in that song. I know she's wilding on Twitter right now, but do that. Support artists, learn about it. But more than that, engage in the reflection of yourselves. If you're a white person, engage. Where you come from? Where are your people's music? What is it? Where does it come from? And you got to take that all the way back, because if you tell me like Rolling Stones and Eric Clapton and all that, you got to go back, because that's black art as well, right? And we go farther back than that. So engage in that process, and that's how we stop that. That's how we stop this. If you want to talk more independently, holler at me. Check out the website. If this feels useful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it on social media. I love y'all. Peace and love.